What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the last episode on Kick It, AFCON VOA's podcast that focuses on the Africa Cup of Nations tournament that was held in Ivory Coast that just wrapped up. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Mike Hove, and I'm joined in studio by my good old buddies, my AFCON champions, Sonny Young to the right, Muqbil, Yabarow, Sam Sasu, and of course the loser himself, Kahli Abdu. Gentlemen, man, what a tournament it has been. Everything, the tournament of dreams and nightmares has come to an end. Nigeria's worst nightmare came to fruition. The redemption story, arguably, I would say one of the best stories in African football, if you ask me. Kahli, let's start off with you. You watched the game. How did you feel, man?
I think it kind of went as I expected. I thought that Cote d'Ivoire would come in very hot, very strong, very motivated. And I just didn't expect the Super Eagles to be that reserved as they were. And the game went the way that I expected.
What was your thoughts because you guys took an early lead?
Well, but that was fortuitous in the sense that, two captains went up for the ball, and Troostekon got to the ball, but it wasn't really clean. It's one of those that where it could have gone either way, and the goalie could have saved it if he was better prepared for it. It didn't matter that we took the lead, because one thing that I noticed, as soon as we took the lead, I watched the Ivory Coast players, and they were very composed. It's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's stay in this. We're in this. And, they just kept knocking the ball around, and their chances came after.
Sam, that was their redemption story from the quarters all the way to the end. They kept coming back and going forward. What's your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I think it was written in the stars for them, especially for this tournament. I think that with Ivory Coast, credit to them, big credit to their manager as well, because as we were talking earlier, for the manager to kind of come in, halfway through the tournament and push this team forward to this final and secure the final for the nation, it's big. It's big. Nigeria, credit to them for making it this far as well. And just like Kahli said, them playing so reserved, you limit the risk taking that you're going to need, especially in this type of final. You have to be able to be a bit more bold. You have to be a bit more daring. When you're going against a team in the final, because if you stay too reserved, it's going to catch up with you, and that's what happened in the match.
Muqbil, you were in Ivory Coast. You saw those posters of Sebastien Haller. Man stood up, not the game before, and of course in the finals. Electrifying goals. Your thoughts, man?
Yeah, shout out to, what did Sonny say? Holler for Haller. Holler for Haller, man. I think, to me, man, Sebastien Haller, like you said, bro, he's plastered everywhere. When you're in Abidjan, you look at different types of products, man, whether it's hair products, it's cell phones, it's this and that. He's everywhere. So they have a level of love for him. He was unfortunately not able to play at the very beginning of the tournament due to injuries and stuff. And, he himself has had his own story, cancer survivor. So he's definitely wanted to get back in form in total. And to be honest with you, he came in right at the right time. He's a big boy, you know what I'm saying? So it's very difficult to guard him because his movements are so fluid, and he's just very difficult for defenders to handle him. If you just give a 1 second and you're not looking at him, or you don't know where his body is, or you don't get that positioning, he just gets that touch that he does in this game.
I needed that bicycle kick to go in.
Oh, the bicycle kick was, man, it was like, I wouldn't say it was super duper cool, but it was kind of right there. Had he just angled himself in the right way, because he connected fully with it. But it was, that could have been probably goal of the tournament if he would have hit that,
Easy.
So to me, I think it kind of like signified what it meant for this tournament, for Ivory Coast to win this tournament. Very symbolic in that Sebastien Haller is the guy who scores for them in the semis, also scores for them in the finals, to score that goal that puts them ahead and gets them the victory in regular time. To me, kind of like you said, written in the stars for them. They couldn't have written it any better. You've seen, legend Didier Drogba in the fans. He's just super elated to have
coming out with the trophy.
To see his team do this again. And if you remember, when he went out of his way to, literally help his team win AFCON, that was a time where there was a lot of turmoil in Ivory Coast, right? Yeah. So he was using football to bring the country together. There was a lot of unrest in the country. So starting it off then to see it where it is now shows you that football means more to the Ivorians than just a game. So great game for them.
Sonny, your thoughts?
Yeah, kudos to Nigeria. But yeah, the fairy tale story, the Elephants making it to the final. Regarding the head coach, I think this was his 4th match in charge of the team.
Right.
I don't know that a coach has ever lifted a Nations Cup trophy so quickly.
Yeah.
Within 4. But yeah, as Muqbil said, Haller really is kind of a symbol of that team based on his own health issues. And but the other thing that comes to mind from that game is the 12th man aspect.
Right.
Once they scored the equalizer, you sort of felt that the tide had turned and they were going to prevail. But yeah, kudos to both teams, but the Elephants, fairy tale story for sure.
All right, now speaking of the Elephants, let's head over to a clip. We want to hear from one of the players himself, Max-Alain Gradel, to hear him speak more on the game itself, AFCON, and of course, Ivory Coast telling more of their redemption story. Let's hear more from him.
It was an amazing game today, and then against 2 top teams, and then we are very happy to win this trophy because we wanted more than everybody. So to win it at home is making it more special. So very happy.
What's the secret?
Second?
The secret to this?
The secret?
Because we are almost out of the tournament.
Yes, I mean that the secret was like the spirit of the group, the team, because we were out because we lost 4-0, but then we managed to put the group together, and then we managed to be very strong, and then I mean this is what made the difference after when we play against Senegal, because we know that we cannot do any worse than that. So let's go for it. So this is what happened.
And Max, you're one of the players. Max, one question. You and Aurier had won the AFCON before this tournament.
Yes.
How much of it did it count to this young squad experience, and how did it help this team?
Of course, we need to tell them that the role to take to win this trophy, and we played our part. Every day we were involved and to speak to them, and we are happy to have. We are lucky to have a group of young players that are listening also. So they did listening, and today we are very happy to win it. So thank you.
All right, well, you heard there, Ivory Coast stuff. He's forward, right? Max-Alain Gradel. Sam, I want to talk to you a little more about the tactics, right? You heard him talking more about the never say die attitude.
Yeah.
They felt like, even coming out of the group stages, they made it out alive. They got a second life, and they're like, we have nothing to lose. Your thoughts on that moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, once again, goes back to the statement. You're playing for the badge. You're playing for something bigger than, a paycheck per se. It showed in this match a lot. The 12th man aspect came alive. You look at the stats of the game. I mean, Ivory Coast had 18 shot attempts on goal. They had 18 shot attempts in total, 8 on goal. Nigeria only had 5 and only 1 on goal. So you can kind of tell where the risk takers were on, and you saw that Nigeria was a bit more reserved at that time. With Ivory Coast being in the position that they were in throughout the tournament, you're almost 1 foot out the door. You just let go of your manager, and now you're bringing in somebody new that has to bring a team together. But it's dependent upon the players to believe that something can happen out of this.
Right.
It takes a big, strong belief from everybody. So when you're united as a team, as a squad, you can put yourself through a lot more than what people think that you're capable of. And I think that's what we saw from Ivory Coast in this tournament coming forward.
Kahli, so let's bring it. Now, I want to bring in an entire different discussion here. We're talking AFCON 11. You got to pick your 9, brother. Victor Osimhen, Sebastien Haller, what's it looking like?
I think in the context of this tournament, you have to pick Haller for his contributions as a striker, because I'm gauging it based on I need to score goals. I'm gonna put in a guy who he gets a half chance, he buries it like he did in the final. It was a half chance and it's in the back of the net. So I gotta go with Haller just based on that.
Are we all going with your Haller?
What, top guy in the front?
Yeah. You got AFCON 11.
I like Haller, but Emilio Nsue, just off the fact that he went crazy. Like
5 goals.
5 goals is no easy feat.
Yeah.
And to be honest
he's
with
a
you,
right back.
Yeah, and he's naturally for his club he plays in the back. But to me, more than anything else, we're talking about opportunities. It's the fact that he had such few opportunities. especially in that Ivory Coast game where they were getting dominated. He gets one half a look and he buries it. So for me, I really like him up front. As much as I'm a huge Haller fan, Haller didn't play enough for me in the tournament to give him that starting 11 look.
So I'll come with a rebuttal.
Mike, Muqbil and I were talking about it before the this podcast. Trosta Kong was named best player of the tournament. And I have some issues with that in that I kind of like maybe going to an Ivorian player for best player since they won the trophy.
I mean, technically it should work that way, but you also need to look at the role of who did what in terms of carrying the team, right? I think Trosta Kong really carried the Super Eagles a lot. His contributions were irreplaceable towards that team, especially for them making it to the finals. How many penalties did he vary? How many looks did he have? I think ruling him out of that conversation just because they lost in the finals is a whole different chat.
I think the chat that Sonny and I were having was more along the lines of similarly in that the NBA and basketball used to do this thing where even in the finals, the player that performs the best can win the MVP award, even though his team loses. I personally don't like that because no matter how great Trust was, you still lost, right? So for me, it's like this. It's similar like in the World Cup. My thing is like I would have been perfectly fine giving it to Kesse. Kesse had moments throughout the entirety of the tournament and the campaign for Ivory Coast to get them to where they've gotten to. He's been a consistent guy for them the entire tournament. I would have been okay with Adingra as well, right?
You already got best young player.
But it's a young player, but he should have been the player because he assisted on 2 goals as well. Instrumental. So my thing is like not taking anything away from Trosta Kong. He's been phenomenal, but I would like that respective trophy to go to a player from the winning team. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
What if, for instance, right, in the finals of the World Cup, we give that to Mbappe because he played a better game than Messi did? What would happen then? It would be uproar.
Messi's a whole different chat. But Sam, go ahead.
No, I think that it makes sense that way. I can kind of see both sides where we'll use the Messi and Mbappe situation. For Mbappe to do what he did in that World Cup per se, it does make a difference in the whole entire aspect because you got to think about the pressure that's in that game, what it means to actually bring your team back, and how to have it set up.
And he was the only one playing.
No, I'm not saying he was the only one playing. I'm just saying if we're looking at it in that context, right?
I'm saying on the French squad.
Right.
He lifted the heavy load.
Right. But even for the AFCON tournament, I mean, you had a lot of great players that balled out, and even you had a lot of great keepers that could even easily won that award as well.
Yeah.
Because you have to think about it. A lot of these keepers have kept some of these teams in, especially for those last-minute saves, those wonder saves that push them through because the penalty shootouts that they had over and over again. You got to think to stay that consistent. That's difficult as well. So I'm neutral in this situation.
Which brings me to my next point. We're picking our AFCON 11 best goalie, Williams from South Africa, Ronald Williams. What happened to Nwabali? Your thoughts?
That's a difficult one too.
Why?
No, they're both fantastic keepers. I love Williams. I think that he did extremely well, but Bali I think would probably take it for me.
Gotta be on Bali.
Yeah.
Why are you going with Nwabali?
Just because I mean, when I saw Nigeria, South Africa, I didn't see Nigeria pinging all these shots that Williams was keeping out. But on the other hand, I saw Nwabali keep Ivory Coast, keep Nigeria in the game. There were at least 3 or 4 chances that he really just stretched and saved.
Blocked a couple of looks, bro.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
the quality of the shots that
they should have been going
South
in.
Africa was taking and the opportunities that they had, to me, absolutely. And also, when you look at it from a head-to-head standpoint and the team's going to PKs, you can't give it to the player whose team lost. I always edge on the side of the winners.
Right.
Well, not even that, just that. Okay, go bandwagon. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of I'm watching how these keepers are actually going after the ball in matches prior to penalties, and I think that Bali was
a lot more aggressive.
Yeah, a lot more aggressive, a lot more commanding of his box, but also he had the confidence coming
Yeah.
out. I mean, you have to look at it. Williams had confidence as well, but in that penalty shootout, you saw the nerves a little bit from him. In my opinion.
Question. Do you not think though that's kudos to the South African defense and them forcing the game on the other side?
Yeah.
It allowed Williams to kind of just not have to be,
Of course.
worrying as much. So the ball wasn't really
Yeah.
coming to his side. Whereas, Nwabali, every time that ball goes over top,
game on.
it's game on. He was just defend. Man, it was like there was multiple
Yeah.
balls out
Right.
there. You know.
Yeah,
So
I
he
think
worked a lot.
You give
throughout game.
that credit to them, and you give that credit to him as well. I mean, busy day in the office for him every single game. There's not even a single game where I'm seeing him just standing still. He's making dives. He's making great saves. So.
Hey, Mike, can we revisit the bigger clubs going after these players? Who do you see, Nwabali or Williams? Maybe getting a contract.
I mean, both of
offer?
them are playing local league in South Africa. At this point, I was talking to both Muqbil and I was saying I like the fact that you had an Arsene Wenger at AFCON because I think this is also showing that when you have influential football figures, there's going to be a move or two there. I expect one or two players coming out of AFCON moving to bigger clubs, be it Nwabali, be it Nsue moving from a third division club to a bigger club. Like, I expect at least one or two players out there getting a couple of looks.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you also have to kind of look at it from this standpoint now. AFCON is starting to get recognizable because now you're seeing a lot of African young talent go to a lot of larger clubs, and they're bringing more attention when they come back to their homeland because now they're actually being scouted by other clubs to see how they're performing in that tournament. And like you said, Arsene Wenger to be there, I mean that's a top name there of himself as a manager. So let's see how we continue on with AFCON for the upcoming years to see, okay, where do these top clubs come in to actually either put a camp in there or put in, a youth club in those countries to start bringing in, the academies to start bringing in more talent and, actually building a network for African stars coming out.
Breaking down the best coach, MSV, Ivory Coast.
No argument here.
Yeah.
No argument there.
I do have an argument,
I always err on the side of.
I wanted to go with Hugo Bruce.
Yeah,
I think what Hugo was able to do with Bafana is something that hasn't been done in a very long time.
It's not a bad choice.
He was able to really generate that spirit of what Bafana was always known to be. Went with a completely local squad. I genuinely am erring on the side of Hugo Bruce. MS Fair barely had 5 games to his name. He came in. Now, that's not to cut away. He won the tournament.
It's not only that, but you go from being the worst team in the knockout phase to winning, all because of his style, I'm sure, of letting the players play with more freedom and just letting them do their thing.
But you also have to look at it. It's not even just that aspect of the tournament. You have a lot of different factors. You're coming in as a manager that hasn't been able to manage at a top level. You're the host nation of the tournament.
Right.
You're on your way out, and now you have to pull this team together and have them trust you and trust your tactics to go out.
And on top of that, if you fail in this instance, right, and like his first matches against the defending champions, if he loses to them, he could say, look, I got thrown into an unpredictable situation. Unwinnable situation, but he might not get another potential gig for, it might push him back in his trajectory of getting roles. So, this was, to me, I respect the fact that he even took it on because he could have easily said, look, this is an untouchable type of situation. He took it on, and kudos to him and his players for really allowing him to thrive. And I hope that the team and the federation stays behind him and gives them the resources to potentially be a part of so he can be the manager for the upcoming
I
World
think they
Cup.
will, but I think his work starts now.
Right.
Yeah.
The real work starts now because all the pressure will be on him now.
Absolutely.
Which is now, I guess, delving into it. The next AFCON is literally around the corner. We just wrapped this one up, but it's not just AFCON. You've got the FIFA Club World Cup. You've got World Cup qualifiers. You've got the FIFA World Cup coming up. So it's like just back to back to back big stuff.
Yeah.
What does this momentum look like for Ivory Coast moving forward?
For Ivory Coast moving forward, it builds a lot of momentum. That's number one. Number two, now you have a little bit of pressure on your back because now you have to perform because you've shown in this tournament that you can perform underneath any circumstance of pressure, any circumstance of doubt. any circumstance of any unpredictable situation that you're going to be faced with, just like you said, Muqbil. I think it's also going to come down to the biggest thing is consistency. Can we stay consistent outside of Africa when we play different teams? Because that's is what's going to really define that nation. Because you've seen a lot of teams when they go outside of their homeland, they struggle to find that consistency against bigger teams. I think Ivory Coast can do it. I don't have any doubt about that. But it's going to come down to the willingness of the players and also, once again, trusting the manager. Because, like you said, there was a freedom of play, and you saw that within Ivory Coast when they were in the matches. But can they do it consistently? That's the question.
Runners-up, Nigeria, they had a very bad lead up to AFCON. World Cup qualifiers weren't really looking beautiful. Now it's the time they got to turn it up again. Can they do that, Kahli?
I think the entire setup has a lot of question marks. The leadership, when I say leadership, I mean the people who are in charge of
the federation.
Yes, hiring the coach, even selecting the players. They have their work cut out for them because some of the players, I think I saw somewhere today, some rumors about Iwobi maybe retiring. There's going to be a lot of talks of players, leaving the setup. So even the manager, I don't know if they keep him. I was hearing something along the lines of maybe they're gonna let him go and find somebody else that's more that can play an expansive style. I'm gonna say this right now: you have a lot of talented players in the Nigerian setup, even players who we haven't seen Boniface play. There's so many players that so many players like that. So a manager that can come in and take a look at what we have and say, okay, this is how we're going to play going forward. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Muqbil?
Yeah, I think Nigeria, for the most part, did what they had to do as one of the bigger, quote unquote giants of Africa in football. They were the only ones that were able to make it to the big dance. So that in and of itself showed that, they got over their World Cup qualifier.
And they didn't
little hindrances.
They were a little wobbly.
At the very beginning they were, but once they caught momentum, they really did what they could. I like this core team for what it's worth and what they did, the camaraderie that they showed, the fun that they were having in the locker room. The players really like each other, and that's one thing that we spoke about. For me, I feel as though, like you said, Kahli, this team is going to lose a couple of older players. Now, putting in the younger players in the rotation is going to be key on the success of this team moving forward. We have so many. Nigeria is one of the most populous countries, and the diaspora is endless with ample talent. Will these guys want to come and play for this team? I think they will. I think that's the answer. Now, if you have potential players that have dual citizenships, they'll see what this team did collectively and be like, that was inspiring. Let me go and be a part of something bigger. I could play for England, but I might not get playing time, or I might, this or this and that, or I might be able to play elsewhere, but let me go and play for Nigeria. I think not only Nigeria, but the entire continent has a lot of players now that are interested in going back home because, like we mentioned, the game has, really shown itself. This tournament has been global,
What I would like to see is a manager that comes in and allows the players that freedom. When you see the young players, whichever country they play for from Africa in the junior World Cups, those junior tournaments,
they ball out.
They really ball out. Very expressive, very skillful. When they make the
senior team.
The senior team, there's a lot of restriction. Players are being micromanaged, and everything is too tactical. Like, for example, go look at Jean-Michel Obi when he played against Messi in the Junior World Cup versus when he made the move to Chelsea and played in the Super Eagles. Different player, not expressive at all. I would like to see more coaches like the Ivory Coast coach that allows the players the freedom, play that expansive style, because that's what the Super Eagles are known for.
Quick follow-up, Kahli. Record amount of prize money at this Nations Cup, and the Super Eagles, I think they won $4 million.
Yeah.
How would you like to see that money used?
I would like to see them take that, back to Nigeria, to whether it's in terms of the scouting, just focus more on the local leagues, just like South Africa, all these teams that have played very well with local players. That's inspiring. I think that's what Nigeria needs to take a look at. Sure, you have all these stars playing in Europe, but I would like to see them use majority of the resources in the local to strengthen the local leagues.
Now, this tournament, and once again, I keep using this term, and it might be the last time, dreams and nightmares, right? We saw a lot of small teams really play ball. Can we expect to see a Cape Verde, a Mauritania in the 2026 FIFA World Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, to me, Cape Verde's methodology on how they put this team together was through LinkedIn. Right, the reach out is amazing. Using a social media network to bring professionals in the diaspora together to say, look, come play for the home nation, and we're gonna get all the best talent globally and in the country to be able to get the best possible team together to represent us. I think that's amazing. So it'll be amazing to see what other maybe small countries that maybe don't have the infrastructure like the Nigerias or the Moroccos, how they can build on that, just to reach out. Similarly, super random, but in the Asian Cup, Qatar just won the Asian Cup, right? The player who scored the 3 goals, his dad is of Somali descent, Afif. Afif could potentially play for Somalia.
Right.
You know, so who's to say when these players, if they decide to play for other countries or maybe to play for the continent, maybe this changes the trajectory of some of these smaller countries that aren't really as dominant. So, be interesting to see.
Sam, if you're the reigning champions, Senegal, how are you re-strategizing to make sure that 2026 you're back up? Or not even 2026, the next World Cup, Morocco, you're back up.
Yeah, next World Cup. You're talking about with Senegal. We have to start down with our system of play. Like how do we actually want to play going back into another major tournament? Because coming out of this tournament, we performed as best as we could. It came down to the smaller details of that match that really defined, okay, were we going to push through or not? So I think it's going to come down to defining our system of play, understanding, okay, how do we change and not become predictable? Because I think that a lot of teams studied how Senegal played. So it made it a bit easier to defend them when they wanted to go wide and come back into the middle. So I think that's kind of where it's going to have to start for them.
Kahli, for you, Egypt?
Yeah, Egypt. I think Egypt has a lot more work to do than Senegal does, because Senegal has a younger core that they're building, whereas Egypt is on the other side, other extreme. I think, it just goes back to the same point of scouting, build your local league, your local, setup. Why are you laughing? What's
our producer over there is saying the demographic is the same. They come with the same players all the time. Shout out to Sing, big man from Morocco. We appreciate you, bro.
But seriously, I mean, they need to work on their whatever their local league is, and after all, they do show up in the Champions League. Their team, they're always in there. So I don't think they're far off, but they got to work on the next generation for sure.
Muqbil, you get to wrap this up, brother.
Yes.
Morocco, how do they bring it up, and how do they come back?
Morocco, to be honest with you, didn't really have that bad of a campaign. I think they just, weren't able to capitalize on the moments in that particular game. I think it's similar to what Senegal faced in Ivory Coast, in that they just were not clinical in the potential finishes. Hakimi scores that goal. It's a completely different game, right? It changes the trajectory of it. So I think, for the most part, that team is relatively young. They're not super old and they're not super young. They're kind of in the middle. I think they'll be the same exact team for the World Cup coming up for the most part. And they do have a lot of young up-and-coming stars as well that kind of can get some more burn, I guess. So we'll see what they do. But I'm expecting them to still be relatively in that upper echelon of African sports for at least the next World Cup and the AFCON.
For some of these, before you go, for some of these guys, it's not that they were bad. It's just that everybody else
has elevated. Absolutely.
There is a ceiling for some of these guys. It's not so much they could do better.
Gentlemen, it's been a great campaign. We have to wrap this up now. But once again, like I said, the next AFCON is around the corner, so we'll probably be kicking it again by the time the next AFCON. Ladies and gentlemen, you were tuned in to the final episode of Kick It AFCON. I'm your host, Mike Hove. Once again, joined in studio by Sonny Young, Muqbil, and of course Sam Sasu and Kahli Abdu. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. Remember, follow us on VOA Africa.